This is the Project Management Podcast. We bring project management to beginners and experts. Find us on the web at pm-podcast.com or send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com. Hello and welcome to episode number 172. I am Cornelius Fichtner. This is the Project Management Podcast. Nice to have you with us. I have an interesting confession to make. I love curling. Yes, I really enjoy that sport where the players slide stones over ice towards a target area at the far, far end of the playing field. I love to play it, and I love to watch it as well. And you might ask, what does that have to do with project management? Well, our guest Pam Stanton will explain the connection between the two in our interview when we talk about her book and practice called The Project Whisperer. But you'll not only hear how curling and project management connect, you'll also learn what a project whisperer is, how you can benefit from being such a project whisperer, and what the first few steps are for you in order to become one. And of course, we are giving away 2 copies of her book. One copy, as always, is reserved for our premium listeners, and 1 copy is up for grabs. To win this copy, please go to facebook.com/pmpodcast, look for the post about the book giveaway, and just leave a comment. Are you preparing for the PMP exam? Yes. Do you want to measure if you are ready? Yes again. Our very own PM Exam Simulator will help you do exactly that. It contains 1,800 realistic sample questions in a simulated testing environment. We are launching this new PM Exam Simulator on March 25th, 2011. Stop by at pmexamsimulator.com and get a 20% launch discount simply by signing up to our launch newsletter. That's pmexamsimulator.com. And yes, it's pmexamsimulator.com. There is no second P in there. By the way, did you miss me last week? Or did you even notice that we didn't publish an episode? Well, for all those among you who actually did notice and were wondering, where is this week's Project Management Podcast? Well, we skipped it because, drumroll please, I am happy to announce that I became a US citizen. I got sworn in on Friday, and you can imagine that I had my mind on other things. But now, let's get back to project management. Pam Stanton graduated from Yale University with a bachelor's degree in psychobiology, from where she started her 20-year career in project leadership, including positions at Johnson & Johnson, Integrated Computer Management, Prudential Insurance, and United Way. As a consultant, she has also worked in dozens of other business environments. The Project Whisperer chronicles 2 decades of insight into the human dynamics that affect project teams. She lives in the western woods of New Jersey with her husband James and 2 daughters. And now, psst, quiet, look over there. Do you see those 2 projects? Cute, aren't they? Enjoy the interview. Enjoy the interview.
Project Management Podcasts feature interview. Today with Pam Stanton, founder of Heart, Brains and Courage LLC and author of The Project Whisperer.
Hello, Pam. Welcome to the Project Management Podcast.
Hello, Cornelius. It's really my pleasure to be here with your community today.
The title of your book is The Project Whisperer. What does the title of the book mean? What is a project whisperer?
Well, there are a lot of whisperers out there, right?
Forest whisperers, dog whisperers, ghost whisperers. Yeah, the project whisperer, that was only a matter of time, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And it started out as a little bit of a joke among my friends. I really was thinking about being the project shrink. But then when I tested that out on a few folks, I realized pretty quickly that there weren't very many people who would be willing to admit that they needed a project shrink.
Yeah, and it's already taken. Bas de Bar from Holland.
I saw that, and I read Bas de Bar's blog, so I thought, let's just avoid all that. Here's what the project whisperer means. It's really three things. It's a project manager who has the ability to identify and interpret and understand the behaviors of a project team. That's really the first and foremost. And then a project whisperer uses their understanding of an individual's personality and their thought processes and their needs and their communication style to build the trust and confidence that's necessary for a strong partnership. Because I believe that strong partnership is ultimately what delivers project success. And then the third thing is really then a project whisperer applies this very keen insight to lead a team with techniques that are rooted in trust and respect.
Sounds like there is a lot of soft skill involved.
Well, there absolutely is, and I'm very passionate about the importance of human emotion and behavior in the performance of teams. Because in my 20 years of project management success, I've learned really three basic things that form the premise of my book and my approach. And I can cover those for you now if you like.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, it's really, first of all, that projects are primarily about people, right? And that sounds trite. And of course, project teams are groups of people. But really, at the end of the day, it's mainly about the people. And the second thing is there are predictable behavioral dynamics that can either propel or derail a project team. And a project manager can proactively anticipate these to really create the optimal conditions for success. And then the third piece of my premise is that, traditional methodology and process alone is no longer going to get us there. That we really have to embrace this dual approach of hard skills and soft skills in order to evolve our craft.
Why did you write about all of this?
Well, again, I wrote about it because of my passion and because of the success that I've had in applying these principles and certainly learning them along the way, 20 years of bumps and bruises. And so, I really wanted to share my experiences and join this growing community of conversation about how now we evolve, from our base of hard skills into embracing soft skills. And really, what does that mean? Because it's not a simple topic.
Mm-hmm. All right, so here's a question that's completely out in left field, and that's going to surprise many people. What does all of this have to do with the sport of curling?
I love that question. The sport of curling is the analogy that I've always used to describe my view of the role of a project manager. And, thankfully, the recent Olympics have made it easier for people to embrace my analogy. I no longer have to explain in such detail what the sport is. But, there's one person who throws the stone toward the target on the ice, and then there's two others who skate in front of the stone. And they sweep the ice, and they alter the conditions, and they keep looking at the target, and they enable the stone to reach the target. And as far as I'm concerned, that's me. That was always my role. I'm a sweeper. I'm out in front of the stone. I'm out in front of the team, looking at the target, looking where the stone's going, look at what might be blocking it, and altering those ice conditions so that the team ultimately can sail on to the target.
So what's the benefit of the project whisperer approach?
Well, I guess the most obvious and perhaps pertinent is that it works. I've used this approach over my career, and I've really delivered successfully on some of the largest and most messed up, complex, and political projects that were ever undertaken in some of the organizations where I worked. And, second, I think there's a larger purpose than just delivering one isolated project. There are a lot of ways to do that, I think some of which are more short-sighted than others. I've worked in places where, say, intimidation and fear was used to fuel performance, and I've seen that approach burn out after a few iterations. And I think at the end of the day, I believe in my core that we all want to feel good about what we do and how we do it. And so that, for me, is the great benefit of the Project Whisperer approach. It gets the job done. It contributes to the overall organizational growth and talent in the organization. And you go home feeling good about how you did it.
So let's take a look at those messed up projects like you just called them. And let's see how you do this. So let's jump right into your experience in the practical application of this. How do you personally apply the Project Whisperer approach when you work on a, messed up project?
Well, my favorite projects are the turnarounds where I get asked to come in and help figure out what's not going well. And it's really starting to assess the situation, and it's understanding person by person, where they're coming from, what is their understanding of the project objective. That's a fascinating question because too often I find you interview 50 people, you get 70 different answers. So right there, that there's a gap, but it's understanding and assessing where the team is at. And then, as I said, sweeping out in front, understanding, identifying the obstacles, the roadblocks, and then doing whatever it takes to clear those away. And some of my whatever it takes mantra takes very interesting forms. In my book, I write about an experience working for a consulting firm many years ago where I had a team that was traveling in to the site and going home on weekends. And I was staying at the site. I was single and having a good time in Tampa, I would go out grocery shopping for them on the weekends so that when they came back late Sunday night, burnt out from having been with their families in the long trip and ready to start another long week, they didn't have to worry about food. They had coffee for Monday morning. Simple things like that sound silly really made a big difference. So I say whatever it takes to get that team to remove their obstacles so that they can do their thing. And that's generally what I found is if I can get things out of their way and I can get out of their way, they know what to do.
Earlier on, we mentioned soft skills, and I was actually going to ask you whether or not a project whisperer is basically just someone who knows how to use his or her soft skills. But it seems to me that there are a lot of hard skills involved as well.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think, I would go beyond saying that a project whisperer is someone who just knows his soft skills. And I would say that it's a person who must know how to use soft skills. And that term soft skills is very interesting. I looked in Wikipedia, of course, our source for everything now. And here's how it's defined. It's the cluster of personality traits, social graces, communication, language, personal habits, friendliness, and optimism that characterize relationships with other people. I mean, that's no small feat. Right? So a project whisperer, is really someone who embraces the new reality that we as project managers are now embedded in the fabric of organizational growth and change. We not only need to deliver on a particular project, but in a way that keeps people whole, not leaving body bags, and lifts the whole business from both a tactical and a personal perspective. I mean, we're really in there. No project stands in isolation.
Right. Hearing it sounds very much like things I've heard before from other people. One of them is Jack Ferraro. He wrote a book called The Strategic Project Leader. And then there are other folks out there who talk about a servant project leader or servant project manager. Is this all along these kind of lines?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a big fan of servant leadership and really taking those concepts and applying them in a project context. So that is absolutely in alignment with and part of the conversation I really want to continue.
Mm. Have you come across any projects or company cultures where your approach just wasn't a fit?
That's an interesting question because you'd have to think that after 20 years and hundreds, and I haven't even counted of projects, there'd be one, but I have not found that yet. In a world of increasing globalization, of course, now we all need to understand how to identify and interpret behavioral symptoms of team dysfunction, which may be expressed differently across different cultures. So that's an important nuance now for us. But at the root of that, the basic human motivators are the same. As I've traveled around the world, I find the common denominator is that we all want to succeed, want to be recognized for that, and we want to feel good about ourselves and what we do. So I really, starting at the root of human behavior, I haven't found a place where that doesn't apply.
Mm-hmm. Where is the balance between the hard skills that we have to apply and project whispering?
I see them as completely complementary, one needing the other, which is why if you see the cover of my book and on my website, my logo is the yin-yang symbol, everything in balance. I think the project whispering type of insight is the gateway to then digging into your bag of tools and tricks to choose the right one for a situation. In simplest terms, it's knowing when to use the hammer versus when to use the polishing cloth. So the hard skills give us that incredible tool bag around our waist. And then, using our emotional intelligence and soft skills, we figure out which tool to grab for.
So let's assume that one of our listeners is interested in project whispering. Other than getting your book at pamstanton.com, what would you suggest are maybe the first 2 to 3 to 4 actions that they can take tomorrow at their place of work on their projects to get started on this?
Okay, sure. I get very tactical in the book, which is, I think, what we need to do in terms of translating this from an abstract concept into reality. So let me give you just a few quick pointers then. First of all, really, I would say assess where the team is at, both on an individual level and as a whole. You can use any frameworks you like, and we can talk later about that. I define 7 stages of a team's journey. But really, kind of where are they at? What are their obstacles? And I think that is the key here, is identify any obstacles and roadblocks, both through your own direct observation and through direct inquiry. It's easy enough to ask folks what's holding them back. And then third and finally, make it your job to clear that path. As I always say, whatever it takes, clear that path so that team can do their thing.
All right. And how can our listeners learn more about you and your services?
Well, the book, The Project Whisperer, is available on Amazon. It's also available at the projectmanagementbookstore.com at a really nice discount. So that's a good place to find it. And through my website, pamstanton.com. My website also has links to free resources and articles which go into the approach in more detail. So there can be a lot found there for someone who's interested.
All right, and to close this out, once again, the book is called The Project Whisperer, Understanding the Human Part of the Gantt Chart. It is written and self-published by Pam Stanton. Pam, thanks so much for coming on the program today.
Thank you, Cornelius. It's completely my pleasure.
And that was Pam Stanton on The Project Whisperer. As a reminder, we are giving away 2 copies of her book. 1 copy reserved for our premium listeners, but the other one is up for grabs to anyone. Please go to facebook.com/pmpodcast, look for the post about the book giveaway, you may have to scroll down a bit, and leave a comment. That's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. As always, you can find us on the web at pm-podcast.com. If you are a PMP or PGMP and you're looking for a simple and effective way to earn your PDUs, then try our sister podcast, the PDU Podcast. Get a new webinar and at least 1 new PDU every month on autopilot. Stop by at pducast.com. That's pducast.com. Please send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com, and when you write, please tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this. This is the funniest comment that I received on Twitter following the announcement that I had just become a US citizen. The user Steph Bluenose responded, "So, how many PDUs do you have to earn every year in order to keep it?" Until next time. Pam, I have one more question for you here. What was the most interesting project that you have ever worked on?
The most interesting project, I think, is one where I really cut my teeth and realized that I had something when it came to managing projects and delivering. I was working at a nonprofit organization, and at the time was asked to lead an initiative for a facility renovation. Go figure, why? But I had demonstrated an ability to organize almost anything. So the trick here was that we had to stay working in place while the interior of our entire floor was gutted, renovated, and reconfigured. So my challenge was to figure out how to do that by strategically moving people ahead of what I call the construction infantry, right? I was also a one-woman show in charge of telephony and networking systems and all of that. So I had to keep moving and repatching cables, literally picking up people's desks and, shoving them into corner offices as buzzsaws were coming and all. Well, so I thought that my biggest challenge was going to be the logistics of this. Okay, what wall is being knocked down tomorrow and who do I have to get out of its way? But it turned out, as things got louder and dustier and noisier and messier, the biggest problem really was the staff because they were getting edgy. They were losing their patience. They were losing their minds. There was one moment that, kind of broke it all for me where one woman on the staff had decided to go put herself in a space in the back where I didn't have any activated, computer or phone jacks. And she came out freaking out and screaming, practically grabbed me by the neck saying, "I want this to work now. And I thought, all right, you know what? I have to do something here. I have to intervene to show leadership and best intention. So while I had the whole group kind of, shoved and crowded into an exterior ring of offices in the suite to protect them, I took 4 cubicle walls. I set it up in the middle of the open space. I threw a clear tarp over it, and that's where I worked. In my little tent. I had plaster raining down on it. I was right next to the buzzsaws. I couldn't have a phone conversation. But the thing is, there was no one who could complain that their situation was worse than mine. Because when they'd come and they'd, start to get frustrated, I'd just look at them and go, really? Seriously? And, it got to be funny. It broke the tension because, first of all, they're like, this woman is cracked, But then they realized, all right, you know what? She's trying here. She's doing the best she can. She's taking the worst hit of anybody. So let's lay off and maybe try to help her a little. Because maybe our situation isn't that bad. And it became kind of the joke of Pam and her 10. But you know what? It broke the whole situation and turned the emotion into a better direction. So that for me was a huge lesson. And I'll tell you, sitting under, watching pieces of plaster rain on my tent was one of the images I'll never forget.